Last year, I traveled across Western Europe, across 14 different countries. One thing that was very interesting was how the local culture of each country within Western Europe was so unique despite being pretty close to each other and close proximity to each country. A lot of the country took its pride in its local rural heritage. Whether you go to Colmar or Strasbourg, whether you go down south to Nice, Saint Tropez, or Marseille, or if you go to the southern countries. When I was in France and I went to these regions, I loved how each city you could walk in, relish each city, relish the little nooks and crannies, find local glass makers, local artisans who perfected and pursued their own crafts over time. I rode with many motorcycle clubs as well. I had rented a motorcycle for a year. At that time, I had the Honda NC750. And some of these motorcycle clubs took me across to different places in France, Norway, Portugal, Sweden, Finland, and so much more. I really discovered Western Europe for what it was, right? And I didn't really have to spend too much time mapping out places. I would go sit at a hostel or camp out at a campsite, meet a fellow motorcyclist, and they would take me to some very local, really off the beaten path areas that I would have never discovered otherwise. When I look at the motorcycle culture that we have in India, or that we have at least in the south with some of the clubs I ride, or with the club I ride with, we generally follow Google Maps, take the most efficient route that is to get from A to B, maybe see one or two spots along the way, but we don't really know all the nooks and crannies. We haven't really breathed India's rural culture the way that I might have done when I was in Europe. From being on a very small farm in Harstad in Norway, where you could look at how the Vikings lived in the 12th and the 13th century, to then going to different places in France, Italy, and Portugal, and to that matter going to Andorra, which had the largest spa in Europe. I was blown aback by how people take a certain pride in their culture and people take a certain pride in what they see. For some reason, we find that to be very difficult in India. They are there, the cultural pockets are there, but as a motorcyclist or as a motorcycle community, how many of us generally do these rides? Yes, you have expeditions that kind of do it, but I really don't see much content that exposes this to people across the globe. One thing that I learned during my MBA at INSEAD was meeting all these people from all the different parts in the world. You could see how proud everyone is about their culture. And we as Indians, we are proud of it as well. But the one thing that we don't do a good job of is showcasing and portraying this outside. My idea and my goal is to kind of do this through my channel. It's to expose people to what India has to offer, the really rural, rustic sides of it, from the view of my motorcycle. What I'd like to do is take a few friends or go solo and really hunt and explore these places and bring them to light. Some of my best adventures and some of my best times in Norway or in Andorra was really exploring the nooks and crannies of the country. I rode from Portugal in the south to the top of Norway called Nordkapp in the north. It was a journey that spanned over 20,000 kilometers almost, because I made a lot more stops along the way. And I met all sorts of people from everywhere in the world, to staying in towns that had less than 2,000 people, to then being at some of the most bustling cities in Europe. I got to experience Europe for what it was, while getting a degree out of it. And then I realized that's something that we're missing here, that we're missing back home. We have the resources, it's just not been well documented for whatever reason. So that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I aim to do. And while doing this, I will also cover the journeys that I've learned across Europe, and the journeys that I've learned across my motorcycle trips in India. Just to give a bit of background, in India I've done Bangalore to Ladakh on a Royal Enfield. and I've covered South India extensively. Now, granted, most of this was not really exploring each city for what it was, but it was cutting through each city. So while I had a very high level flavor of it, I never really dived deep into understanding what each city holds, the experience each city has, and what I could learn from each city. As I journey through each state of India, I invite you to join me on that journey, and I hope from 26 onwards, it's going to be interesting. So, that's a little bit about me. That's who I am and where I come from. And I hope to keep posting further, and let's see how things go.